Day 34. Karma. So, going back to my story about Bridezilla, which was my ex-wife, there's an interesting study on female nature that happens with the end of that relationship and the beginning of the relationship that I started after that relationship. So essentially what had happened with that relationship is that my Bridezilla relationship is that she had just made life so unbearable in the home that really all I could do was leave. And she really wasn't very happy about that because I believe, I was a good source of narcissistic supply. And, I just had to go. I just couldn't take the, really at the end of the day, it was a form of mental abuse. I mean, it's hard for a man to be in a relationship where sex is non-existent. He's always told he's an asshole and treated as such. Of course, I allowed that to happen because I was quite a bit more blue pill back then. What can I say? However, when I left that relationship, I then immediately, shouldn't say immediately, I'm going to say about 3 or 4 months later, I began a relationship with a woman who lived in a town not far from where I lived. Now, that relationship started off hot and heavy. Our first date was pretty good. We had like a 4 or 5 hour first date where we just talked and had a good time. Clearly, she was a narcissist too, because she idolized me right away. And then I started seeing her pretty much almost from the word go. After the first week of meeting her, like in the second week, I was like spending, I'm going to say, if not every day, at least every other day at her place, hanging out, doing stuff. Which, if you think about it, is kind of, it's, now it's a total red flag, because anybody who wants you blended into their life that quickly, I mean, there is magical connection that does happen for sure, but in any case, and I'm speaking of through the lens of something that happened going on 5-7 years ago. So we got together and it was good for about 3 months, and then she had some old boyfriend in the mix who kept popping up, and one day she got sick of me and showed me the door, and I broke down, had a hard time, because I was pretty needy at that time, because the first relationship I was out for my wife, so I was looking for love, right? I'm sure that's what tore it apart. And, I employed no contact then. She came around in about 3 weeks, and then we proceeded to date more, and I guess she realized I was a great guy and had good prospects. 2 things happened in that situation, though, is that I began to bring my kids around. After about 6 months, I began to bring my kids around her place just to meet, and that freaked out my ex-wife. She actually wrote this girl on Facebook and threatened her. Not physically threatened her, but the message simply was, "Stay away from my children," which didn't make things very good. It really raised her ire a bit. And but that's neither here nor there, because the relationship with my ex was not great. We had a defined relationship as far as custody, but she would always make it very difficult. But as time went by, this girl and I decided, I was fresh out of I was again real blue pill. I was like, hey, let's get married. So over the period of about a year, and I didn't do that right away. It was over after about a year and a bit. We moved in, got a nice place, but things continued to be stressful with my ex-wife. Always give me a hard time over custody with my kids, and it was just getting worse and worse. And I think it was because she was pretty upset that I was able to replace her with a woman who was arguably quite a bit more attractive, and women don't want to be replaced, right? So the point is that my relationship with this girl was very rocky. And I think either she had some narcissism or what's called borderline personality disorder, because she would be a different person every day. You know, things like me leaving the cupboard doors open would cause her to lose her shit. Behaviors that I tried to talk through with her, when the reality is I should have just put my foot down and said, you know what, you can cut it out or you can leave. That's what I should have done. But when you continue to talk and rationalize with someone who continues to do that, you're basically validating their behavior. So when people act out, just a quick point of note, guys, especially with women, you teach them how they can behave. So she would get narcissistic supply from me because she would act out and I would cater to her acting out. When the reality should have been is I should have said, your behavior is unacceptable. I'm going to go until you sober up, or vice versa. And ultimately mean it that you will go. Because half the time with these relationships, I'm always terrified that they are going to go. For whatever reason, I want to be loved, right? Once I'm emotionally invested, I feel like it should be equal. But as you've come to learn by this whole series, it never is. They never love you as much as you love them, so never let them know how much you do. Anyway, where the karma comes in. So a couple things happen here. So in the throes of this relationship, near the end of it, and little known to me, it was the end of it. My ex-wife, I showed up at my kids' school to pick them up after school one day, and the police were there. Oh yeah. Police said, we can't let you see your kids. And I'm like, what's going on here? So what apparently had happened is that my ex-wife, in conjunction with the teacher, my one son at the time was busy using the word weenie. Like, don't touch my weenie would be what he would say, as a funny little thing to say. In any case, they took that as I'm some kind of pedophile, and my life was thrown into the Family and Children's Services meat grinder for 2 years. Yeah. Which my sons look back now and they realize what a monster their mother is. But at the same time, the woman I was with at the time, we were having problems in our relationship. So in narcissistic style, and you can look this up, narcissists will abandon you when you're in a crisis. And so that was a crisis. I showed up, couldn't get my kids, and almost within 2 or 3 days, the other woman was gone. Now, she had, I believe, fostered some kind of other relationship because there was another dude showed up shortly thereafter. I remember her sending me a message once about 3 weeks after she had left, saying something like, me and my beau are going to come get my stuff. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And it was crushing. It was absolutely crushing. Because it seemed like everything was so perfect for her. It seemed like her life was going just tickety-boo, just like they do. My ex-wife, seems like her life was going so perfect because she had my kids and she had the power of the law behind her because of the deception. I was completely decimated. I had my kids taken away, my romantic relation taken away. My career was failing. It was all I could do to keep my head above water. Now, I'm pretty emotionally, mentally strong, so I was able to compartmentalize, but quite a few days were spent, in bed, staring at the ceiling, just trying to defuse this bomb. Years later, though, not years, but maybe been about a year later, I got the most excellent news in 2 areas. Well, most excellent news in one area, and then there's other news which is happening in the other one. So about a year and a bit later, this girl who left me for this dude, she calls me up and says, hey, are you having a problem sexually? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, do you have herpes? And I'm like, herpes? So guess what? This fucker she took off with gave her herpes. Perfection. Not only was she a complete nightmare to live with and abandoned me when I needed to, but now the universe was saying, fuck you. And now here we are. I know her cousin actually, so I get updates now and again in her life. She's 50 years old, she's fat, she's single, and she has herpes. What kind of man would want that shit? Perfection. And you know what? I don't wish ill will on anyone. It's just, this is just what it is. And because of basically the assault and the attacking she had done to me, she completely blew her life to shit. And in addition, she had a job. When we got together, she had a job cleaning houses, and I was pretty keen on I was pretty impressed that she had her own business and stuff. But that's not a business you want to be in when you're 50 and 60 years old. I mean, you can do it. It's not really something you'd want to do. The point is that had we stayed together, you know, I'm career driven. I would have created some kind of opportunity for us if we worked together. And her life would be radically different. But it's not. And she only has the person in the mirror to thank. Concerning my wife and how she blew our lives apart, my sons know the bullshit she pulled. They know female nature. They know the monster she's capable of becoming. And I have just said to my sons, hey, you know what's going on. Just be polite and sweet to your mom and extract all the resources you can from her. Because she is your mother, but at the same time, use the example of how she dealt with me. And the proof of how she would deal with my sons is that she's often talked about how when they're 18, they have to leave home. And, which is just insane. I mean, yes, they have to be productive, but kick kids out just because the buzzer has gone off. It's nuts. So I believe my ex-wife is going to experience a level of karma which is going to be absolutely exquisite. I believe in the future my sons will want to have very little to do with her. And if they do, it'll be very superficial. I believe the relationship she's in right now, if it lasts, will be basically empty and soulless. And that's even if it lasts. Who knows if it will, because she's getting old too. My ex-wife is over 50 now. And as you folks know, men age like wine, women age like milk. Which I guess is why I'm dating a 29-year-old. Anyway, going back to the beginning of this thing, it's true that the girl that this project about is 40 years old. She's a good-looking 40, though. It's funny, we go out, men would often say, oh, you're out with your daughter. She's well-preserved. But God, I miss her. Even this 29-year-old, she's great, she's fun, we had a good time. Last night we got together, had a good time. But if you've ever been with someone that just, you fired on all cylinders, when you're not with them anymore, it is a hole in your heart. I think you hear about it in Hollywood now and again. Frank Sinatra, he was in love with, I don't know the woman. You can actually look it up. You can Google it. Frank Sinatra had a relationship with a woman, and one of the Hollywood starlets, and he had an on and off relationship with her over the years. He even paid for her funeral at the end. She had such a hold on him. This woman has a hold on me, and I guess the difference is, though, is that I don't have movie star money and all that kind of stuff. And maybe that can somehow play a part in this. And at the same time, I don't believe that the Rat Pack was busy trying to manifest things with the law of attraction. Which I'm trying to do. Which I'm going to do. That's the power of positive thinking, right? So anyway, as I said, I believe, I alluded to this earlier, I think the universe has got all kinds of fun stuff in store for people when they fuck people over. You know, there's a line in the Bible that says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And while I believe there's quite a bit in the Bible that's horseshit, I believe it's a control grid manual. Some of the basic teachings in there that where two or more gather together in my name it shall be done, You have not because you ask not. And vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. These are all indications of divine intervention as far as the energy of the universe dealing with people. I believe I've been dealt with in my life in certain ways. The thing that happened with the Children's Aid, I'm sure that there was a lesson in there for me, for sure. That was definitely a trial by fire. But in the aftermath, these people will. Sometimes you meet old people who maybe lived a great, or got some terminal condition and they're assholes, and you understand, you know why they got the terminal condition. Or just I think things come around to get people when they don't realize that once they start drinking poison, it seeps into every part of their life. And drinking poison can be how you conduct your life and how you deal with other people, and it just wrecks you. So karma is a large topic. It's very deep. And it is such that be careful how you run your life. Be careful how you run your life. I mean, I can think of times when I have done just little white lies or little. I had a woman the other day. She left a deposit on some furniture, and then she decided she didn't want it after jerking me around for a while. And so I said to her, hey, I'll give you a deposit back when it sells. So it sold 2 months later, and I was thinking to myself, fuck it, I'm just going to keep the money. But then I thought to myself, you know what? I said I was going to give the money back, so I'm going to do it. And I did. And lots of areas of my life I think I could screw people over, but when you screw people over in little areas or do little things, you lose a little piece of yourself. And so you know what? At the end of the day, I was thinking this yesterday actually. This separation I had from my girl, I think she's getting a lesson. I think she's being taught a lesson now that will bring her back to me, but it's going to change something inside her. We'll see. I mean, I may be operating from an idealistic standpoint. It's possible. But I have this feeling like as I'm moving through the days, there's all these signs. Yesterday I was just doing some general computing. Up came the resort we were at Christmas, like just as an ad. I was driving in this lot this morning. There was a big billboard for the school I used to take our kids to, like a new one opening here. Just little signs of similarity in our life, and I know I may be grasping at straws, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to grasp the straws because signs from the universe, show you're on the right path. Anyway, karma. Internalize this, guys. Just remember your struggle is a teacher. It's good to have one foot in chaos and one foot in order. Because remember, there's two sides to that chaos and the order. The other person is experiencing it as well. And how wonderful if you can get in vibrational unison with someone. And at one time, my girl and I, we were in vibrational unison, and we're gonna get back there, and we are going to vibrate the same and restore this thing. Anyway, thanks, guys.